His real name is Do Hyun, the founder of Mamacoin, once the 5th largest cryptocurrency in the entire world. But right at that peak moment, he got slapped with a subpoena from the US Securities and Exchange Commission. And just like that, Mamacoin, which formerly held a value of 50 trillion Korean won, crashed, losing 99% of its market value in the blink of an eye. The aftermath in Korea was devastating. Over 200,000 people lost their entire life savings. The situation was so desperate that many people took their own lives, while others stormed straight to Do Hyun's house. But there was nothing they could do, because since last April, Do Hyun had completely vanished into thin air. Even though he posted on social media claiming he wasn't on the run, prosecutors argued that he was clearly evading capture. I mean, the guy caused a massive loss amounting to 50 trillion won. To understand this better, let's rewind the clock back to 1998, when Do Hyun was taken by his mother, Park Ok-ja, to see a fortune teller. The shaman bluntly declared that the boy was being haunted by a spirit of poverty. She said the best thing for the mother and son to do was to move immediately to the Gangnam district to ensure her son received the absolute best education. Mrs. Park Ok-ja obediently followed instructions, quickly spending money to change their household registration for her son. And from there, Do Hyun began his academic journey in the prestigious Daechidong neighborhood. Every day, the boy had to dodge inspectors to attend cram schools until late at night. Among his classmates, there was a boy who used a wheelchair. This friend in the wheelchair came from a wealthy background, and his father was a kind man. Seeing Do Hyun having to walk home alone in the middle of the night, he offered to give him a ride part of the way. Do Hyun flatly refused, claiming his house was just around the corner and it would only take 5 minutes to get there. He insisted it was fine, explaining that his parents were traveling abroad, so they didn't have time to pick him up lately. Besides, with such a short distance, nothing bad was going to happen. But was that really the truth? That night, Do Hyun didn't get home until nearly 3 a.m. When he walked in, his mother, Mrs. Ok-ja, was fast asleep. That's right, Do Hyun had just lied. His house wasn't in the expensive Daechidong area at all. His parents weren't traveling, and he certainly didn't have the money to go abroad. The reason he lied was simply that he didn't want anyone to know about his poverty-stricken background. Clearly, Do Hyun was someone who cared deeply about his image. However, even though he had carefully calculated every risk and even secured a letter of recommendation from a Berkeley alumnus, he still ended up losing his spot in the exchange program abroad. This made him incredibly frustrated. Seeing the person who replaced him, the friend in the wheelchair let slip a comment that was hard to decipher. The teacher flatly denied whatever was implied, but it still gnawed at Do Hyun. He even went online to research the benefits available for disabled people. The result was that he just grew even more resentful. Finally, he marched right up to that friend in the wheelchair and said, "Just because you're disabled doesn't mean you're talented. You're just working at an ice cream shop. So why on earth are you getting government handouts?" The result left Do Hyun with his jaw on the floor. He absolutely never expected that the guy in the wheelchair wasn't actually disabled at all. But once he collected himself, he couldn't help but wonder what that guy's mother expected of him. However, his mother just silently shook her head. It wasn't until Do Hyun stood up to leave the room that she finally muttered something. Despite all that, Do Hyun had absolutely no intention of giving up. He worked even harder, and his ranking quickly shot up from 35th place all the way to 2nd. By the mock exams in September of his senior year, he even managed to claim the number 1 spot. Just like that, Do Hyun finally got accepted into his dream university, majoring in business administration. During the club recruitment fair, he got roped in by a senior to join a club that supported student startups. Do Hyun obediently agreed to join. And another person who was drawn in by the talk of foreign exchange was a freshman from the computer engineering department named Ji-woo. However, Ji-woo arrived late and missed the Forex presentation. In the end, Do Hyun shared half of his sandwich with him. Back to the official interview round, the interviewer saw that Do Hyun graduated from Huion High School and immediately asked if he knew a lot of people in the Daechidong area. The reason was that their club operated mainly on donations, so they placed a huge value on connections and the alumni networks of their members. To pass the interview, Do Hyun immediately bragged that he had access to the Huion Global Network, a gathering place for many judges, prosecutors, lawyers, CEOs, and even members of the National Assembly. Since Huion was already known as one of the top prestigious high schools in Korea, this made the interviewer very satisfied. Finally, he asked Do Hyun just one question. Do Hyun immediately panicked. In the end, out of pride, he decided to stretch the truth, describing his mother, who was actually a nursing assistant, as a medical professional, leading everyone to believe that his mom was a doctor. As for his father, Do-hyun didn't even know where he had gone. He only remembered that when his dad left, he said he had an opportunity to do something big. He also told him that appearances are very important and that a person must stay loyal to their beliefs. However, it was really strange that for a club with such high standards, Ji-woo, a student on financial aid, also managed to pass the interview. This piqued Do-hyun's interest in him. And Ji-woo, unaware of Do-hyun's impoverished background, saw that he didn't look down on him like the other wealthy members did. So he also took a liking to him. So, the two of them quickly became close friends, hanging out together every single day. One day, Do-hyun suddenly discovered that, over the next 5 years, the government was going to grant 800 billion won to support young entrepreneurs under the age of 30. Furthermore, within this plan, only their senior, Kyung-jin, from their club had received 50 million won in funding. This caught him completely by surprise. Who would have guessed that not long after, Ha Kyung-jin used the excuse of treating them to a meal to ask for their help. It turned out she sought them out because she wanted them to massage her accounting books. She had used the startup funds for a whole bunch of random nonsense. Ji-woo argued that this wasn't basically falsifying records. They could very likely end up taking the fall for Ha Kyung-jin. But Do-hyun didn't see it that way. He thought they were just polishing the books a little bit. Just like that, Ji-woo was persuaded by Do-hyun to go along with it. But even Do-hyun didn't expect Ha Kyung-jin to be so audacious. She had used the startup funds to travel to Europe, blowing a straight 30 million won on partying and having fun. Even so, Do-hyun had no intention of giving up. He asked Ji-woo to check if there were any seminars in Paris during that time, in order to rebrand Ha Kyung-jin's European trip as her participation in a startup presentation conference for young female entrepreneurs. As for the boyfriend who went with her, he became someone she paid to act alongside her. Even the cost of the 5-star hotel at 530 euros a night was written off as a venue rental fee. However, that wasn't the main problem. Do-hyun could easily wipe those expenses clean. The real issue was that Ha Kyung-jin had spent 13 million won to buy a designer handbag. This price tag was very difficult to polish and settle in the accounts. Do-hyun thought for a very long time and finally came up with a way to split it into 2 separate service fees. This is the era of apps. So they could totally pretend Ha Kyung-jin was trying to create a new application. Of that, 7 million won was designated for planning and user experience design, and the remaining 7 million won was used for app development and testing. Just like that, the two worked together seamlessly and finally succeeded in cooking the books for Ha Kyung-jin. To repay them, Ha Kyung-jin not only treated them to a high-end steak dinner but also paid Do-hyun an additional fee. This made Do-hyun incredibly excited. As for Ji-woo, he was satisfied just having the steak. However, right in the middle of eating, Ji-woo suddenly popped a question. Should we apply for the startup fund? After all, this steak is truly delicious, and just one bite costs 10,000 won. Besides, if Ha Kyung-jin could get 50 million won, then why couldn't we? Ji-woo mentioned that a certain founder was a genius developer who, despite failing 6 times in his career, eventually ended up with a fortune of over 100 billion won. Therefore, failure is nothing to be ashamed of. Startup funds don't necessarily have to be used for success. Sometimes, they are there for you to use for trial and error. These words gave Do-hyun a boost of confidence. Plus, since the deadline for applications for this youth startup competition hadn't passed yet, he immediately prepared to go big with Ji-woo. Just like that, the two quickly identified their target audience and prepared to develop an app for people with disabilities. The two of them researched day and night for this, and in the end, they won first prize in the startup competition, earning the chance to sit at the same table with major investors. Furthermore, during the meal, Do-hyun didn't forget to show off his sharp observational skills. Noticing that Deputy Director Kong cared deeply about his personal image, even pulling out powder to touch up his face before taking photos, Do-hyun immediately seized the opportunity to straighten the man's tie, even though it wasn't crooked at all. Of course, after receiving the prize money, Do-hyun and Ji-woo didn't actually launch a legitimate startup. Instead, they started cooking the books, continuously participating in startup competitions just to milk those startup funds for themselves. What's even funnier is that in 2017, they were actually scouted by a leading company in the fintech industry. The reason, even though every service they had previously developed was a failure, the fact that they could plan so many different projects in such a short period was, in itself, an extraordinary feat. This statement had a massive impact on Do-hyun. His ambition grew larger and larger, and he even began to look down on Ji-woo, his longtime companion. He bluntly told Ji-woo that he didn't need to join him for the interview and even ordered him to just pour tea and serve water. This made Ji-woo extremely uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Do-hyun started acting like brothers with Kevin, and the two of them drank happily together. Kevin even told Do-hyun, "For those who are desperate to make money, you just need to give them the illusion that we are helping them make money." At the same time, while Ji-woo was organizing documents at the company, he accidentally discovered Mrs. Park Okja's identification papers and a letter she had left for her son. This led him to discover Do-hyun's true background. He immediately arranged to meet Do-hyun at the steakhouse they had gone to years ago. Unexpectedly, faced with this familiar steak, neither of them could swallow a bite. They felt it didn't taste good at all anymore. Then, Do-hyun said that they needed to hire a new development team. The current scale didn't look like a real company. It still felt like a university club. Furthermore, he told Ji-woo that he had to learn about cryptocurrency and couldn't just stand around looking like an idiot anymore. These words undoubtedly stabbed a fatal knife right into Ji-woo's heart. And it was also at this moment that he finally gathered all his courage to ask about Do-hyun's mother. It turned out that Ji-woo had met Mrs. Park Okja once before. Back then, while Do-hyun was out socializing with big shots, Ji-woo happened to run into Mrs. Park Okja, who had come to drop off some things for her son. Moreover, seeing Mrs. Park Okja dressed very plainly, Ji-woo had mistaken her for Do-hyun's housekeeper and even shoved some taxi money into her hand. This shocked Mrs. Park Okja greatly, but knowing how arrogant her son was, she ultimately only managed to say one thing before she left. Do-hyun had always claimed his mother was a plastic surgeon, and Ji-woo had never doubted it until he read the letter Mrs. Park Okja left for her son. Just like that, Ji-woo realized that this friend of his was actually nothing but a liar. Even the leg disability certificate from before was just to dodge military service. So he had asked his mother to forge a disability certificate for him. Long story short, Ji-woo felt like he had completely misjudged this guy. In the end, he decided to cut ties with Do-hyun right then and there, and they stopped hanging out completely. As for Do-hyun, he didn't even try to make him stay. Instead, he turned around and teamed up with Kevin to dive into cryptocurrency. And that is exactly how Mamacoin was born, with the meaning of love as generous as a mother. After that, time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 2021. Do-hyun found himself being invited to the interrogation room of the Financial Supervisory Service. And in just 3 short years, Mamacoin had skyrocketed in value from a measly 1 all the way up to 400,000 won. However, Do-hyun remained incredibly arrogant. Even facing a situation like this, he didn't show a shred of fear. He said straight to their faces, "What's the big deal here? I didn't force anyone to buy it. Obviously, those people bought it voluntarily, but now they're looking at me like I'm a thief. Seriously, just a bunch of poor people who only care about some petty cash." That statement was honestly crossing the line a bit. The female lawyer sitting next to him immediately cut in to stop him, calling for a temporary pause to the conversation. Once that was done, she tried her absolute best to advise Do-hyun to stop saying unnecessary things, warning him that those words would eventually come back to bite him. Unfortunately, Do-hyun didn't listen to a single word of it. Later, during a video call with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, Kevin reminded him to watch his mouth, but he didn't care one bit. He straight up called the people on the other side a bunch of idiots. The situation became incredibly awkward, and Kevin's face looked absolutely terrible. So he immediately arranged a meeting to talk to Do-hyun. It was clear that by now, Do-hyun didn't respect Kevin at all. Kevin reminded him that way too many eyes were on Mamacoin right now, and the money they had made was already far more than their original plan. He insisted they needed to act carefully and cash out quickly. Hearing this, Do-hyun couldn't help but burst out laughing. With the current shareholder structure, the decision-making power lay entirely in his hands. So he had no intention of listening to Kevin's advice. He even argued that even if this was a life or death moment, they shouldn't just give up on Mamacoin like that. Because, as he put it, birth comes from death, and finding a way to break through a deadlock is the true key to business. The next day, for the first time in a long while, Do-hyun returned to his old university club. On the wall, there was still a photo of him and Ji-woo winning their first prize back in 2012, right alongside the startup business plan they had worked on together. This made him feel incredibly emotional. Just then, a junior student walked up and told him that only club members were allowed in there. However, Do-hyun had donated hundreds of millions of won to this club, When he revealed his identity, the junior student's attitude instantly changed to one of deep respect. But Do-hyun never expected to hear that nowadays, his juniors couldn't get much startup funding anymore. The reason was that in recent years, so many people had appeared just to exploit those startup funds. Speaking of which, the junior student quietly pulled out his own startup plan, and written right there on it was his desire to take cryptocurrency to the moon. Do-hyun was completely speechless, thinking this kid was truly delusional. But the junior countered, saying that if they launched a digital wallet address containing 10 billion won up to the moon, then for the rest of their lives, every single time people looked up at the moon, they would think of Mamacoin, and they would think of Do-hyun's startup legend. These words actually sparked Do-hyun's interest. He immediately gave the junior his email address, instructing him to remember to send this plan over to him. This made the junior incredibly surprised and happy. Once that was done, he couldn't help but ask Do-hyun if Mamacoin would continue to skyrocket in price, because not long ago, he had just poured his entire life savings into it. Clearly, Do-hyun still had a shred of self-respect left, and he didn't want to deceive this junior. However, when the situation became much more dangerous in 2022, Kevin and all the other shareholders voted to pull the plug immediately. But Do-hyun was incredibly stubborn and absolutely refused to agree. Seeing this, Kevin argued that the product they were selling was fundamentally flawed from the start. If they kept going like this, they would truly become nothing but scammers. And when that happened, Do-hyun, as the largest shareholder, would definitely end up in the most miserable situation of all. Yet, even so, Do-hyun still wouldn't give up hope. He insisted that he had received intel that the government planned to pump a massive amount of money into fintech companies. And although Mamacoin was experiencing huge volatility at the moment, the total market cap was still rising. As long as they seized the opportunity and presented a new vision, they could definitely pivot successfully. Hearing this, Kevin absolutely couldn't take it anymore. He directly warned Do-hyun that his and Ji-woo's past actions of intentionally scamming prize money constituted embezzlement of public funds. As long as he did as he was told, this matter wouldn't be exposed. If not, Do-hyun would be completely destroyed. However, even hearing this, Do-hyun didn't wake up to reality. The prosecutor's office also quickly issued a summons for him. Furthermore, at this point, all the connections he had built up became useless. Everyone was terrified of being implicated by him. The scammed investors also exploded with rage, storming into the company, demanding that Do-hyun give them an explanation. After that, Kevin quickly fled far away. As for Do-hyun, after struggling to hold out for a while and seeing the situation was unsalvageable, he finally went on the run in 2023. Then, time fast-forwarded to the year 2025. At this point, Do-hyun still hadn't given up on his business plans, and he even tried to contact that female lawyer from years ago. The lawyer revealed that currently, both the US and South Korea have issued extradition orders for Do-hyun. In the US, he was charged with intentional fraud and would face a sentence of at least 150 years in prison. As for Kevin, he was also prosecuted in South Korea on similar charges. However, he didn't have to serve prison time or suffer any other consequences, because Do-hyun was the one who had truly been running Mamacoin. As for that friend in the wheelchair whom Do-hyun asked the female lawyer to track down, well, she came up empty-handed. She called around looking for every single male student named Sang-ju from Huion High School, but it turned out none of them had ever been disabled. This revelation left Do-hyun completely frozen. The lawyer then gave it to him straight. He needed to get his butt back to South Korea immediately to face the punishment of the law. She argued that he had money, he was still young, and he could start over at any time. But that was not what Do-hyun wanted. And right there, the movie comes to an end. Set against the backdrop of the massive Luna cryptocurrency crash in 2022, the film follows the main character, Do-hyun. It tells the story of how he maliciously exploited vulnerable groups with special circumstances, like youths, women, and people with disabilities, to illegally embezzle startup funds. During the process of intentionally going bankrupt and shutting down his businesses, he stumbled into cryptocurrency investment and subsequently fell into a deep ethical dilemma. The entire film explores the price of success from a cold, detached perspective. It exposes policy loopholes and the depths of human greed, aiming to provoke the audience to reflect on societal values. And the ending is presented with an open-ended narrative style. It doesn't directly judge the protagonist's choices, but instead leaves it up to the audience to ponder the character's actions and the so-called meaning of success for themselves.